I cleaned their backyard for 6 hours, cut my hand on rusted wire, and washed in cold water outside. My wife said, "You could have tried harder." Her father added, "You'll never be good enough." That night, I slept in my car while they ate steak inside. The next time I came to that house, I brought more than just words. I'm 42. My name's Marcus. I've never been much for drama or revenge. I work with my hands, I mind my business, and I show up when people need me. I've never been flashy. I never cared about being impressive. All I ever wanted was to be respected. Not worshipped. Just respected. That's not what I got. 6 years ago, I married Rachel. We met at a car show in Austin. She was way out of my league, at least by most people's standards. Corporate job, heels, straight teeth, grew up in a family that took yearly vacations and drank wine with dinner. I was a boots and beer guy from outside Tulsa. My hands were already rough when I met her. I worked HVAC, long days, came home tired, and didn't talk about my feelings much. But I showed up. I tried hard. Her parents never liked me. Her dad, Carl, is the kind of guy who thinks a college degree makes you better than someone who works with their hands. Every time I came around, he had this way of smiling like he was doing me a favor just by letting me be in the room. Her mom, Janice, always called me Marcus the mechanic, even though I've never worked on cars for a living. That was her little joke. I let it go. At first, Rachel started off on my side. She used to roll her eyes at her parents' little digs. She used to tell me it didn't matter what they thought, that we were a team. But people change. Over time, I started to feel like she wasn't defending me anymore. Like maybe she was starting to agree with them. I told myself I was imagining it. I wasn't. Memorial Day weekend, we drove to Cedar Hill to see her family. She said her dad wanted to barbecue and have everyone over. I didn't want to go. The last time we'd been there, Carl made a comment about my work truck dripping oil in his driveway. It was brake fluid. And it didn't drip. I checked. But I went anyway, because Rachel asked. She said, "Don't make it weird." Like I was the problem. When we pulled up, Carl was in the backyard pacing around, waving his hands. Some contractor he hired to clear the backyard hadn't shown. It was a mess. Fallen branches, broken pallets, rolls of rusty wire, splintered boards, old tools laying everywhere. It looked like a junkyard. Soon as he saw me, he smiled. "There's my guy. Got some free labor after all." I thought he was joking. I laughed once, nervously. He wasn't joking. "Gonna need you to clean all that up before dinner," he said, nodding toward the mess. "Don't worry, Rachel can show you where the hose is after." Rachel didn't say anything. She kissed her mom on the cheek and went inside. I stood there. Waiting. Hoping maybe Carl would say he was kidding. He didn't. So I worked. No gloves. No warning. Just me in a backyard full of rust and trash. I spent the next 6 hours hauling splintered wood and rusted fencing wire to the edge of the property. It was over 90 degrees. No shade. No water. No, thank you. At one point, I cut my hand on a roll of fencing wire. It was wrapped around a broken shovel handle. The wire snapped when I pulled it and slashed the meat of my palm. It wasn't a tiny cut, it bled fast. I walked to the back door, holding my hand like a busted pipe, and asked Janice if she had a first aid kit. She looked at me like I was asking to borrow a kidney. "There's a hose on the side of the house." That's what she said. Nothing else. Just that. So I washed my bleeding hand in freezing hose water. Stood there like a damn dog. The blood ran off into the grass, and I used the bottom of my shirt to dry it. I kept working. When I finished, I sat on a patio chair just to breathe. I'd barely gotten settled when Rachel stepped outside and hissed, "Get up. You're all sweaty, you're gonna mess up the chair." I just stared at her. Then she said something that still sticks with me, "You could have tried harder. It still looks messy." She said it flat. No warmth. No gratitude. Like I was a lazy teen who hadn't raked the leaves right. Then Carl chimed in from the doorway. "You'll never be good enough, Marcus. Don't think this is new." I didn't say a word. I just stood up and walked to my truck. They sat inside eating steak. Drinking wine. Laughing. I saw them through the big kitchen window. Nobody noticed I was gone. I slept in my truck 2 streets away. My hand throbbed. My back ached. But it wasn't the pain that got me. It was the disrespect. The humiliation. Like I was nothing. Less than nothing. Rachel didn't call that night. The next morning, I woke up to a text, "You made things awkward by leaving like that." That was it. No apology. No concern. Just the word, awkward. Like I'd spilled a drink at a dinner party. I didn't reply. I didn't yell. I just made a decision. That was the last time anyone in that house would make me feel small. I started planning. I didn't want revenge that looked like revenge. I wanted it to feel quiet. Personal. Like the world was closing in on them and they didn't know why. I knew Carl had a car in his garage he worshipped, a 1967 Mustang, fully restored. It wasn't just a car to him. It was his manhood on 4 wheels. He polished it every weekend. Didn't even drive it, just stood there admiring it like a trophy. I also knew Carl kept files in his study. I'd seen him brag about his contracting business, which I later found out wasn't just shady, it was straight up fraudulent. He made fake bids through shell companies, used dummy labor numbers, skimmed off government grants. He once said, "Everyone does it. I'm just smarter about it." I used that. A friend of mine, Trey, owes me. Used to be real good with surveillance stuff. Got into some trouble with the law years back, but now he works clean. I told him what I needed. We installed 3 small cams, 1 in Carl's garage, 2 outside his study window. Got a long lens to zoom in on his desk. Over the next few weeks, I collected footage, paperwork, documents, tax filings, screenshots, anything that proved what he was doing. While that cooked, I did something else. I started digging into Rachel. It wasn't hard. Her phone was predictable. Same password she'd had for years. I found the texts between her and her friend Melissa. Hundreds of them. Her telling Melissa how I was embarrassing. How she only married me because she thought I'd grow into something more. How I peaked at 35. How she was just waiting for Dad to retire so she could move on without guilt. Then I found Matt. Her coworker. The one she worked late with every Thursday. I printed everything. Every message. Every photo. Every lie. And I waited. I didn't confront Rachel right away. I kept things normal. Polite. Came home, made dinner, asked about her day. Played dumb. She acted like nothing had happened that weekend at her parents'. Like me sleeping in my truck wasn't a big deal. Like her dad calling me worthless was just his way. She didn't even ask about the cut on my hand. That was fine. I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her to keep thinking I was weak. That I'd roll over like always. Meanwhile, Carl was cracking. The news tip I sent out about his contracting scams didn't get ignored. A local TV station picked it up. It aired the following Thursday during the 6 p.m. segment, Cedar Hill contractor under investigation for fraud. They had screenshots of invoices, emails, and tax forms. The files I sent anonymously. The footage of Carl yelling at a worker in his garage. That ran, too. He looked like a maniac on live TV. Janice called Rachel that night in a panic. I listened from the next room while Rachel paced back and forth. They said someone leaked our files. Someone from inside. We think it was Stephen, but it doesn't make sense. He barely speaks English. Then Rachel said it. I'll ask Marcus. He doesn't know anything, but maybe he's heard something. That line. He doesn't know anything. That one really stuck with me. I went out for a smoke. Didn't need one. Just needed space. Needed to stop myself from walking in and laughing in her face. Carl's bank accounts got frozen a week later. 2 government audits launched back to back. He started calling around, trying to sell off property. But nobody would touch it. His name was all over the news. Rachel was still in denial. Still trying to protect the family's name. Still sleeping with Matt on Thursdays. So I finally gave her something. One night, she came home from drinks with coworkers. She was drunk but trying to act sober. I was sitting in the living room. Calm. Quiet. Had a manila envelope in my lap. "What's that?" she asked. I handed it to her. She opened it. Inside, screenshots of her texts with Melissa, photos of her and Matt at the hotel, and the note I wrote across the front. "You peaked when you married me." Her hands shook. She dropped the envelope. "I can explain." "No," I said. "You can pack." She broke. Begged. Said she was confused. Said she felt abandoned and wanted to feel something again. Blamed me for not being ambitious enough. Said I was making this harder than it had to be. I just stood there. Not angry. Just done. "I'm not the one who's gonna make it hard," I told her. "You are." She didn't get it yet. But she would. I had already filed for divorce that morning. And I made sure to use the same lawyer Carl had once laughed at behind closed doors. A woman named Jill Watkins. He called her the feminist hag once. Said she didn't know real law. She knew enough. See, the prenup Rachel had me sign 6 years ago? It only protected her pre-marriage assets. Everything else, our shared income, the car I bought, even the savings account she thought I didn't know about, was up for grabs. And I took it. All of it. Legally. Through the courts. With receipts. Rachel had to move back into her parents' house. Carl's house. That was the part one liked the most. Because things in that house weren't going well. Carl was paranoid. He started putting cameras up around his property. Janice stopped talking to most of her old friends, too embarrassed to go out in public. They even started renting out the guest room on Airbnb to cover costs. A woman like Janice? Changing pillowcases for strangers? That must have stung. Rachel was jobless. Matt dumped her after his own fiancé found out. Corporate cut her off with a polite, "We're moving in a different direction." She called me once. I didn't answer. She emailed. Said she missed me. Said she never stopped loving me. Said she didn't know how far things had gone. I forwarded that email to Carl. No note. No comment. Just enough to twist the knife. But there was still one thing left. One piece that hadn't dropped yet. And that piece was the Mustang. Carl still had it. After all the press and humiliation, he clung to that car like it was the last part of himself still worth anything. He kept it in the garage, covered, locked up. He didn't even look at it anymore. Just knowing it was there seemed to keep him alive. So I took that too. I wasn't going to just break into Carl's garage and wreck the Mustang. That would have been too simple. Too obvious. The goal wasn't just damage, it was erosion. I wanted him to watch it fall apart. The man lived in that car. He'd spent 2 years restoring it. Custom paint. Original parts. The whole 9 yards. I remember once, early in our marriage, I complimented the engine. Carl sneered and said, "You wouldn't understand. You work on air conditioners, not muscle." I never forgot that. So I waited for the perfect opening. Every Saturday, Carl would step into the garage between noon and 2. Like clockwork. But after the fraud investigation started, those habits broke. He stopped caring for the car. He was too busy putting out legal fires, talking to lawyers, fielding calls from old clients who wanted refunds or answers. The Mustang sat untouched for weeks. I watched all of this from a distance. Literally. Trey, my old friend who helped with the surveillance, still had the feed from the garage camera. We watched Carl lose his grip week after week. Then one rainy Friday, Trey texted me, "Garage open. He's out." No movement for over an hour. I drove over. Hoodie up. Gloves on. Nobody was watching. I didn't destroy the car. Not yet. First, I swapped the oil with a cheap, unfiltered blend that would slowly gum up the system. Then I gently loosened 2 of the fuel lines, not enough to leak right away, but enough to cause sputtering. Finally, I placed a thin plastic bag halfway down the tailpipe and pinned it in with a magnet, enough to block exhaust flow, but not make it obvious until it was too late. Carl would never notice until he tried to drive it again. And when he did, the car would cough, smoke, maybe stall out on the road, publicly, shamefully. It would look like incompetence. Age catching up to him. The final little hit to his ego. And then I left a calling card. I took a photo of the Mustang in its broken, half-covered state and mailed it anonymously to the local news station, the same one that covered his fraud story. I knew a guy on staff. I labeled the envelope. The car looks just like the man. Beautiful on the outside. Rotten underneath. They ran it. 2 nights later. Same anchor. Carl stopped leaving the house after that. But the biggest twist? That came from Janice. She called me. Out of nowhere. She wanted to meet. Said she needed to talk, woman to man. Her voice shook. I almost didn't go. But I was curious. We met at a diner in Duncanville. She showed up looking tired, hair pinned back, no jewelry. She ordered a tea. Didn't touch it. "I know it was you," she said. "The car. The footage. The files. All of it." I stayed quiet. She stared at me. I'm not mad. That part caught me off guard. Then she said something that floored me. "I've wanted out of that house for 15 years. I just never had a way. Now I do." Turns out, Janice hated Carl more than I ever did. He was controlling. Emotionally cruel. She'd been lying for him for years. Knew all about the fake contracts. Knew about the mistress he used to fly out to Austin on business trips. Rachel knew too, she just didn't care as long as the money kept flowing. Janice said she was ready to leave, but she wanted to make sure Carl paid for every mistake he made. Not just the fraud. Everything. Then she slid a folder across the table. Inside were Carl's real accounting documents. Passwords. Access logs. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Evidence he never thought anyone would see. Janice had been keeping copies for years. "You do what you want with it," she said. "But just know, I'm not running anymore." Then she stood up and left. I sat there staring at the folder. The man who mocked me. Used me. Let me bleed in his backyard and eat nothing while he carved steak. Now I had everything. And his wife, his quiet, judgmental, cold-eyed wife, was the one who handed me the final nail. But I wasn't going to rush this. This wasn't just about Carl anymore. Rachel still had more to lose. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't sleep the night Janice gave me that folder. Not because I was scared. I wasn't. It was something else. That moment when your enemy finally hands you the last piece, and all the noise in your head goes quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was focused. I spent the next 3 weeks putting every single detail together. Organized it all in one drive. Everything Carl ever lied about. Fake LLC filings. Fake employee numbers. Wire transfers. The cheating. The shell contracts. The money funneling. Even emails where Rachel and Carl joked about the idiots in government who kept sending them checks. I included those too. I made copies. Sent one to the IRS, one to the Texas Attorney General, and another to a state-level fraud prosecutor who'd just taken office with a big promise to crack down on white-collar crime. But the best part? I sent one last copy, to Carl himself. No return address. No warning. Just the words, "You told me I'd never be good enough. Let's test that." It all fell apart fast after that. Carl was arrested on federal charges. Not just fraud, but tax evasion, conspiracy, and money laundering. He was walked out of his house in cuffs in front of the neighbors, still wearing his damn golf polo. The Mustang? Seized as an asset. He cried. Literally cried on the sidewalk. Janice didn't say a word. She stood at the doorway in a gray sweater, arms folded. Watching. She filed for divorce 2 days later. That house? Auctioned off to cover legal fees. Carl tried to fight it, but the court froze everything. I heard later that he pled guilty to cut a deal. Still got 5 years. Probably serve 3. When he gets out, he'll be 67 and broke. No business. No house. No reputation. Rachel? She lost everything too. Her job was long gone. When the files came out and the emails leaked, everyone in town saw what kind of person she was. The texts about me went viral for a minute. Some local blog ran with the headline, "Wife cheats while husband bleeds," then calls it awkward. I wish I made that up. She tried moving in with Janice, but Janice was done enabling. She told her, "You picked your side." Rachel ended up crashing with some friend who worked at a call center. Last I heard, she was doing temp work and trying to rebrand as a life coach. Melissa blocked her. Matt ghosted her. She sent me one last message. Just said, "You ruined us." I didn't respond. Because she was wrong. I didn't ruin us. They did. But here's the part one didn't expect. I wasn't the same after all of it. I thought I'd feel powerful. Vindicated. Like I'd finally gotten even. But instead, I felt empty. I'd spent so long trying to prove I wasn't small. Trying to make them see me. Trying to punish them the way they punished me. And I did. I buried them. But when it was over, I had no one to come home to. I moved back to Tulsa. Took on solo work. Fixed up foreclosures, did HVAC repairs for old clients. It paid the bills. Kept my hands busy. One night, I sat outside a gas station just outside of Sepulpa. Eating a sandwich from a cooler. Watching cars roll by. And I realized, I don't regret what I did. Not one part of it. But I do regret how much of myself I gave away trying to be accepted by people who never deserved it. That was the mistake I made. Letting them tell me who I was. Letting them make me doubt my own worth. So now, I don't let anyone tell me what I'm worth. I don't try to impress. I work. I eat. I sleep. I don't ask for a seat at the table anymore. Because if they won't give you one, you flip the damn table over, burn it, and build your own. And if they come crawling to sit at your table, you remind them exactly who the hell you are. Even if you have to bleed first.